Picture this. Vienna, late 1670s. Winter coils around the city like a slow predator. The streets outside the Hofburg Palace are frozen, scrubbed clean by frost and silence. Boots crunch against ice. Breath hangs in pale clouds. The world feels sharp, orderly, controlled. But deep inside the imperial residence, beyond marble halls and gilded corridors, the air tells another story. One passage feels different, heavier, warmer, as if the palace itself has begun to sweat. The closer one walks toward the emperor's private wing, the more the atmosphere thickens, becoming a clinging, sour wall that grips the throat and settles behind the eyes. Guards stationed there no longer fear assassins, they fear the air. They fear what seeps from behind the heavy wooden doors they are sworn to protect. Behind those doors lives Leopold I, Holy Roman Emperor, sovereign of an empire stretching across Central Europe, defender of the Catholic faith, anointed ruler by divine right. And yet, behind that sealed threshold, he has made a decision that no court, no church, no council could ever have imagined. Leopold has declared that washing the body is an act of blasphemy. To him, water no longer represents purity. It represents erasure. He has come to believe that God imprinted holiness onto every grain of dust, every pore of skin, every layer of sweat. To clean the body, he reasons, is to scrub away divine intention. Soap is sacrilege. Perfume is deception. Fresh linen is betrayal. And so he issues a command brutal in its simplicity. No water is to touch his flesh. No basins, no damp cloths, no scented oils, no change of garments. The clothes he wears will remain on his body until they decay where they cling. At first, the court assumes this strange conviction will pass, a temporary surge of religious mania, a season of exaggerated devotion. They have seen emperors fast, whip their own backs in secret, vanish into pious isolation. This, they believe, is another episode. But days stretch into weeks, weeks into months, and Leopold does not relent. Beneath his unwashed robes, the skin begins to change. Sweat saturates the fabric until it stiffens into greasy armor. Layers of oil, filth, and dead flesh accumulate, forming a hardened shell that binds cloth to skin. When he moves, the fabric no longer shifts. It cracks, it creaks like old parchment. The smell arrives quietly at first, a sour sweetness that lingers. Then it intensifies. It spreads. It spills into corridors and stairwells, seeping through doors and clinging to velvet curtains. Servants whisper of a stench unlike anything they've known. Not simply uncleanliness, but the odor of something living and dying at the same time. Physicians are summoned. They stand at the doorway to his private chambers, forbidden to approach too closely. From a distance, they see what devotion has done to him. His skin darkened in mottled patches of gray and brown. Sores bloom across his arms and neck, cracked and inflamed, opening and closing in endless cycles of infection. They beg him to allow treatment, to wash, to disinfect, to change his garments before they fuse permanently to his body. But Leopold refuses with eerie calm. Disease, he tells them, is not a curse. It is God working upon the flesh. To cleanse it is to interrupt divine labor. To him, every ulcer is sacred. Every infection is holy carving. Medicine is no longer healing. It is interference. Inside the chamber, the normal rhythms of imperial life collapse. Plates are no longer cleared. Leopold orders that food remain until it completes its natural transformation. Meat liquefies, bread blooms with mold. Fruit collapses into sweet slurry. Flies gather, drawn by the banquet of decay. When a servant attempts to shoo them away, Leopold stops him. They are not vermin, he insists. They are witnesses. The buzzing, he claims, is the sound of creation continuing its endless cycle. Soon the stench becomes impossible to ignore. a sickly blend of sweat, wine, rot, and something darker beneath it all, the scent of flesh slowly surrendering while still alive. Guards are rotated frequently, many requesting reassignment, claiming dizziness and nausea. Courtiers avoid the upper wing altogether. Ambassadors record in private letters that audiences with the emperor have become rare and frighteningly brief. The man who was once presented in gleaming armor and ceremonial robes now moves like a figure hollowed by belief. His voice remains soft, strangely serene, but the air around him feels wrong, wet, alive, breathing, and then something shifts. Filth is no longer simply neglected consequence. It becomes purpose, experiment, ritual. Leopold begins to collect what leaves his body: sweat from his garments, scabs from his sores, blood from cracking lips. Every fragment is carefully sealed into glass vessels and stored by candlelight. Monks loyal not to medicine but to obedience are assigned to observe and record. They name his chamber in Latin, Camera Lucis Interioris, the chamber of inner light. Within it, hundreds of jars line shelves that creep upward toward the ceiling. The emperor studies them with devotion, convinced that within these containers he can witness the ongoing hand of God. When a liquid changes color, he whispers that life stirs. When a film forms on the surface, he says the divine breath has touched it. When pale threads ripple through stagnant fluid, he calls them angels of flesh. To him, decay is not corruption, it is transformation. A sacred unveiling of creation's hidden mechanisms. But outside these walls, fear thickens. Whispers course through the palace. Servants avoid the corridor entirely. Courtiers speak of the emperor as one already half departed from the world of the living. A ruler who no longer governs in inches of gold and ink, but in bacteria, mold, and whispered theology. And yet Leopold remains certain. Certain that within his own rotting flesh, God is still speaking. Certain that in refusing the cleansing touch of water, he has chosen a path holier than any saint before him. Unaware that what he has begun will not end in revelation, but in a chamber so steeped in warmth, rot, and glass that even the bravest will someday struggle to enter and name what they find. And the worst is still to come. The first sound was not a scream, it was silence. A strange, thick silence that spread through the upper wing of the palace like frost creeping over glass. Servants stopped hearing the slow drag of Leopold's footsteps. The whispered orders through cracked doors ceased. The soft chime of glass vessels being rearranged fell away into nothing. For 2 full days, no one dared enter. On the third, the chief physician stood outside the emperor's sealed chamber with a ring of guards and trembling clergy. They knocked once, then again. The echo died before it reached the end of the corridor. There was no reply. When they forced the doors open, history inhaled and recoiled. The heat struck first. A wet, fermenting warmth, as if the air itself had been breathing decay for weeks. Then the smell arrived, brutal and absolute, obliterating any remaining sense of the familiar world. Several men collapsed before they crossed the threshold. Inside, what had once been Leopold I no longer resembled an emperor, or perhaps even a man. He lay upon his vast bed, but the sheets beneath him had fused into a dark, gelatinous mass, glued to skin and bone. Layers of fabric, long since soaked and stiffened, clung like a mummified shell, cracked open in places to reveal what time and infection had sculpted beneath. His face, once framed by regal wigs and adorned with ceremonial crowns, had become swollen and discolored, marked by splitting lesions and wax-like skin stretched thin over distorted features. His lips had cracked open into jagged lines, teeth visible through the fissures of a mouth that no longer moved. Around him, the chamber resembled not a bedroom, but a shrine to decomposition. Shelves of glass jars shimmered in the dim candlelight, their contents alive with subtle motion. Some pulsed with pale biological webs. Others swirled with dark sediment that seemed to respond to the faint vibration of breathless air. Drops clung to the insides like tears that never fell. Books lay open across the floor, filled with dense script, the emperor's own theories, his theology of rot, his belief that he had discovered a sacred science hidden within human decay. Page after page spoke of divine fermentation, holy putrefaction, and the gospel of transformation. He had stopped ruling months ago. Instead, he had been worshiping his own unraveling. Physicians approached cautiously, their faces wrapped in linen soaked with herbs. They confirmed what every instinct already knew. The emperor had not perished quickly. His final days had been slow, agonizing. A body unable to sweat properly, skin unable to breathe, infections burrowing deep, fever clinging like a second soul. Yet his expression, frozen in death, carried not terror, but devotion, a faint, twisted serenity. As if, to the very end, he believed God was still carving something sacred from his flesh. The court, panicked by the scandal that would shake Europe, moved swiftly. They declared the chamber sealed. Guards were sworn to silence. The jars were not destroyed, only covered. The door was locked, bolted, and marked with no symbol but a simple iron seal. Official reports to the public spoke of a peaceful passing, a long illness, a devout emperor returning to God. But within the palace, the truth fermented just as his body had. Servants whispered that the room could not be fully cleansed. No matter how many times they burned incense, the stench lingered. Warmth returned unnaturally, even in winter. Mold bloomed within hours on any cloth left inside. Rats refused to leave. And sometimes, late at night, guards reported faint tapping from within the sealed chamber, like glass being touched. Years passed, then decades. Vienna modernized. New emperors reigned. Palaces were refurbished, history softened, uncomfortable corners forgotten, but the sealed door was never opened again. Not by reformers, not by skeptics, not by those who sought proof. The space remained untouched, entombed like a heresy too alive to exhume, until, in the early 18th century, a young archivist, assigned to catalog abandoned wings of the Habsburg, discovered the sealed corridor by accident. His notes, recovered long after his disappearance, offer the only final testimony. He wrote of a door warm to the touch, of air that smelled faintly sweet and wrong, of a key hidden in the wall behind a loose stone, and of what he found when he turned it. The chamber had changed. Not collapsed, not decayed into dust, it had evolved. The bed was gone. In its place stood a darkened, irregular mass at the center of the room, grown outward like a fossilized bloom. Fabric, flesh, dried fluid, and dust had intertwined into a single form, as if the emperor had merged with his environment rather than departed it. The jars still lined the shelves, but the contents pulsed faintly, illuminated by no visible source of light. Threads of pale substance stretched between them like veins, connecting each vessel in a vast biological network. And at the heart of it all, the shape. Unmistakably human, still seated as though in silent meditation, still crowned by the suggestion of a skull. The archivist claimed in his final entry that the room felt aware, that the air trembled slightly when he breathed, that the faintest low murmur echoed through the chamber like a voice forgotten by history, still reciting prayer to decay. No official record marks what became of him. The chamber was resealed once more, this time with stone. Centuries later, archaeologists would debate whether Leopold's obsession was madness or an extreme distortion of religious devotion. Was he consumed by sickness or by a philosophy too terrible for its time? Had he been delusional, or had he glimpsed something about the body and time that others could not bear to see? No one truly knows. But deep beneath the layered renovations and polished marble, behind walls no longer mentioned in maps, there remains a space where an emperor refused water and worshipped his own unraveling. A place where decay was crowned as revelation, and where the boundary between flesh and eternity dissolved, not in purity, but in rot.